Grandma, it's me, Anastasia.
You're no Anastasia. You're Gerry.
No.
And I'm Eric. And we're back for another theater review. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I myself and my boyfriend Gerry are going to be talking about Anastasia, the musical at La Mirada Theatre. Now, if you've seen my channel before, you know that we like to talk about theater, theme parks, and immersive events across Los Angeles. And today we are talking about a show that we traveled all the way to La Mirada. Orange County is also encapsulated in my SoCal lexicon when I talk about theater happening in the area. But this is really special for you, Gerry.
Yes.
This is a very special musical for you.
It is a very special.
This is based on the 1997 animated film by Don Bluth. What is one of your personal favorite films of all time? Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, I watch it every year. It's my Thanksgiving film.
Really? Why Thanksgiving?
I don't know. I think it's because it came out around that time when I was little, and I just remember watching it the first time around that time, and then I kept watching it every year.
What's more American at Thanksgiving than Russia?
Exactly.
Yeah. If you don't know, Anastasia, the movie is based on a somewhat true story. Well, it is about the myth of the lost Russian princess Anastasia, who was the daughter of the Romanovs. Listen, I'm going to leave the history to you on this because I feel like you're going to be doing a lot of actuallying on this because
actually,
yeah.
No, it's really fun because it is actually based on originally on a play. So
it's a play.
So Anastasia, the musical, is based on the movie. But it's also based on another movie from the 50s that Fox did. So the animated Anastasia is based on the 50th Anastasia. And that 50s Anastasia is based on a play.
But what is it based on in real life?
The play is based in real life of, well, a few things. The legend of the real Grand Duchess Anastasia, who tragically died along with her family, as we find out later. Spoiler. But it's also based on a real person called Anna Anderson who claimed until she died that she was the real Grand Duchess,
which was actually disproven. It was
disproven way later. It was disproven in the 90s when they actually found the remains of the real Anastasia. But for all they knew, during her time, she claimed to be, again, till her deathbed.
It is a very Disney story, but for real. I think you were talking about this with me earlier about how Anastasia is it is kind of a parody, but not in a Shrek way. It's a parody of Disney fantasy fairy tale movies by basing it on a real life tragic event. And the movie itself, it is a very realistically animated film. The Don Bluth animation style is very distinct from the Disney animation style. It's also darker than most Disney movies, especially Disney princess movies are. And I think that the realism of sort of that style of the story that Anastasia is telling lends itself really easily to being adapted. And that is why this musical about 10 years ago was adapted into a stage musical, bringing back the original songwriters from the original film, Flaherty and Ahrens, who also wrote musicals like Ragtime or Seussical. They came back to revise their material from the movie and write a few additional songs. There's a book by Terrence McNally, who also wrote the book for Ragtime and quite a few other musicals. And Gerry, you also have quite a history with this musical as well, because you were at the very first Broadway preview of this musical when it premiered on Broadway.
I was. So I think this is the show that I've seen the most in my life.
Really?
I think it is now officially after this viewing. I've seen it 5 times, 6 if you count the Slime Tutorial Hartford, but that doesn't count because I didn't see it live. But I saw the first preview on Broadway, the very first night it premiered, and that was really fun. Then I saw it again that summer. And then I saw it again the following year with Cody Simpson as Dimitri. And then I saw it again with you in Mexico City.
Which was my first time seeing it. Because I did not grow up with this movie. We watched this movie until I watched it with you for the first time at Thanksgiving. And then we went to Mexico City in 2024 to see the Spanish language production of the show. And despite myself not knowing the language of Spanish,
yes, you do.
not enough to like comprehend an entire 2-hour book musical, but I still really enjoyed the experience. But I was really excited when this production was coming to La Mirada because it was going to be my first chance to see this material in English. And I was looking forward to this show a lot. La Mirada does some of the best Broadway scale original productions in LA. We saw their Sweeney Todd a few months ago and I absolutely loved it. You can check out the review of that on this channel. And so I was excited for us to get to see this production because I really do think that if you're going to see non-Broadway tour, Broadway style theater, La Mirada is one of the best places you can do that. They are known for these big, large scale productions, these lavish sets, these lavish costumes. And I feel like Anastasia being such a big, large, lavish show, this is the perfect place to stage it. And we are going to talk to you about what we thought about this show. So let's get into it. I think it's important to start with the adaptation itself. It's funny how when I saw the show in Mexico City with you, even though I didn't know the language, I could still tell that the book material of this musical is not entirely strong. It's not the best written Broadway book of all time. Do you feel similar about that?
I do. This is my guilty pleasure musical because, again, I love it, but I do think it's frustrating, and we'll talk about more of the frustrations because I do think there's a lot there, and the musical tries to cover too much, but so surface level.
It has the problem that a lot of Disney musical adaptations have where you have to take a 90-minute movie and split it into 2-hour-long acts, meaning that you're having to stuff a lot of superfluous things into the story to justify it being 2 acts. I think this musical really does suffer from that problem, especially in the first act when there is a lot of plot being stretched thin over 1 hour. And then a lot of like the big narrative action happens in the second act of the show. And then you get a second act that is way too overstuffed. It has way too much going on. Mm-hmm. I admire the musical's tenacity in deciding to bring more of the real history of the Romanovs and the real history and the politics of Russia at the time during the fall of the Russian Empire and the rise of communism and Leningrad. If you know the movie, you remember Rasputin was the main antagonist of the movie, as well as his little assistant rat boy Bartog. They are not in the stage musical version. Instead, we have a new antagonist named Gleb, who is one of the generals of the revolution. His place in the musical is a bit confusing to me. I feel like there was maybe a lot of different drafts where they tried to do different things with this character, but in the version that is now like out and licensed and the version that we saw, I do feel like the villain arc of the show is very reduced and seems almost superfluous in this show.
I feel like the biggest problem with this musical is that it's trying. It's funny because a lot of the times when I see people that are excited about seeing the show or that have seen it already, a lot of the criticism is also like, how did they cut Rasputin and Bartok? Like, how did they cut that whole? And because I feel that the movie does commit to the fairy tale fantasy aspect of it really well. And the show, I wish, would commit more to the realism, but it doesn't. It kind of lives in this weird in-between, and it doesn't commit to either of them. And I think that's its biggest problem, because then you don't get a satisfying end to either of them. Like, you don't get enough of the historical side is a fascinating story.
Yeah. And there's such a chance to get into, like, the politics of what it means to, like, stage a revolution and assassinate an entire royal family and like what that does to a country and like what it does to the individuals involved in that. And this musical kind of skirts around that but doesn't really get into it. But you're right, but then in that case it should lean more into the fantasy element of it and just go full spectacle, but it doesn't always do that in either.
It doesn't do any, like, I wish it would, or this or that, but it kind of lives in between.
And I think in terms of like the additional song material, listen, Flaherty and Aaron's some of the best composers of all time. I think that Ragtime is like one of the greatest like Broadway musical scores ever written. They've made some of my favorite shows, and I do think that the film songs from Anastasia are like timeless for a reason. Like Once Upon a December is so beautiful and sweeping, and Journey to the Past is like iconic for a reason. It's such a great like Disney princess ingenue anthem. I think that a lot of the songs that were written for this new adaptation are They range from like okay to pretty good, but I would still say that like the strengths of this show are in the material that was written in the 90s. Do you have any like favorite additions that are just new to this version of the show?
I love In a Crowd of Thousands, and I love the quartet at the ballet, even though it's like reprises, but like I love the quartet at the ballet.
Okay. What about St. Petersburg?
I like it too.
My Petersburg, rather.
I like it too. Actually, I like to sing. It's still in my audition book, but I'm probably taking it out.
Yeah,
soon
so
'cause
like
I'm too old for it now.
Because all of like the main characters, you have Anya, aka Anastasia. You have Dmitri, who's like the male lead. You have Vlad. You have like every character gets their own song in the show that if they didn't have one in the movie. Like Dmitri has My Petersburg. Vlad has a sort of like a B plot romance that is kind of there in the movie but not really expanded upon. So like I do think there are some great character moments in song that are additional to this that I really enjoy.
In My Dreams is also a beautiful one.
That's beautiful.
I like that one.
And then Lily, who is the Bernadette Peters character from the original film, she has the best new song in the show called Land of Yesterday, which is about all of these like fallen aristocrats who are like now living in Paris and like singing about the good old days. And it's a very wild party type number, very like flapper, French Nouveau, like big brash number. And then you're right. And then there is a moment in the second act where like the show just turns into Swan Lake for 5 minutes, and that's beautiful. Really but cool. I credit Tchaikovsky more than I credit Flaherty and Ahrens.
But I will say, I mean, we've mentioned so many songs right now, and I do think, again, I think the material that was written is that it is good, but it feels kind of like clashy a bit sometimes with the 90s one. For example, I think Once Upon a December in this show, and this is a hot take, but while I think it works really well whenever it shows up in snippets, but when it shows up as a number, I think it feels forced.
I do too. It's interesting that the placement of that song, which is like, I would say the second most iconic song from the movie, the placement of that song is weirder in the show than it is in the movie.
In the movie, it's perfect because in the movie, it would take the place of In My Dreams. But I think In My Dreams works for this version. I kind of wish that it would show up in the nightmare scene in the second act. I kind of wish that would be Once Upon a December. But and then Act 2 has too many things already. So,
but what this show does excel at is its big spectacle moments. It is full of these beautiful gowns, great gowns, beautiful gowns, high energy, like ballet dance numbers. There's so much beautiful costuming in this show. And that kind of spectacle, again, is the thing that La Mirada talks about. So I think we should talk specifically about what we liked about this production. I didn't really give a plot summary of Anastasia. I feel like if you're watching this video, you probably know the plot of Anastasia. Russian princess, lost her memory but wants to get it back. Dmitri and Vlad want to like help her impersonate the princess, but then discover she actually is the princess. Oh my god, let's leave Russia, go to Paris. Let's reunite the family, a happy ending. There we go. There's the plot summary of Anastasia. It's also on Disney Plus because she is technically a Disney princess since Disney bought Fox. So where is my meet and greet, Disney? And if we're not going to get an Anastasia meet and greet, at least give me a Bartok meet and greet at Pride Night. Come on, Disney. Get on it. So getting in now to the La Mirada production specifically that we saw. This was directed and choreographed by Parker Essay, who brings this incredible balletic movement, not just to the choreography in the show, but I do feel like the movement of Anastasia needs to be big and dreamlike and swirling and sweeping, and I do feel like that exists in the way that not just the characters move about, but the way that set changes or choreographed. I don't necessarily think that his handle on the material is as strong as it could have been, but again, we already said the book itself is not the strongest. When it comes to the set design and the visual design of the show, like my expectations were semi-low because from what I'd seen from the material, it looked like a lot of the set design and video design was very reminiscent of the Broadway version and the Mexico City version, which we saw. And I was a little disappointed. I do feel like this musical is like about 10 years old now. I think we are ready to bring a new design aesthetic to Anastasia. I am not a fan of musicals having giant video LED walls as replacements for backdrops and set dressing, because other than that, all the set you really get in this production is like these like very like royal palace arches that come in and out. you have like, you know, tables. There is an interesting like train car sequence where they bring on a train car, but even the movement and choreography and direction of that moment is still very reminiscent of the Broadway version of the show.
I'm pretty sure, like, I'm not 100% sure, but the all the videos I think are from the Broadway, or like very closely mimicking it.
I wasn't sure because I remember, because we did see this in Mexico City, and I remember the video design not looking as, I'll say, a little like janky as it did. Honestly, the video design, here's what it reminds me of. If sound off in the comments if you know what I mean when I say this. It reminded me a lot of Half-Life 2, if you've ever played that game, which is like a very Russian style video game set in like post-apocalyptic Russia in the future. There were lots of moments of like these very GameCube PC era looking graphics of like train cars sliding in, what looked like composited images of like Russian palaces that they found on Google Images and then just put inside of a video design and then like a general sky backdrop. It's just disappointing that is what they went for. Whether or not these were copied video designs or ones designed originally for this, I wish that they could lean into a more stylized aesthetic if they are going to use video design. There is a moment near the end of the show where the video design goes from looking realistic to looking painterly, almost like a Van Gogh or something, and I'm like, oh, I wish the whole show looked like that. I wish that these video backdrops looked more like hand-painted paintings, and you got the feeling of watching characters like living in this painting world, rather than these like somewhat crudely photoshopped and animated buildings and cars and bridges being like all shoved together in a very unnaturalistic way.
And I do feel like it is, I could very well say that it is the actual same videos, but if it's not, it's like very, very close. And I feel like that's always been my problem, but it's even more evident now, 10 years later, because it does feel like, well, what is it trying to emulate? Like, is it supposed to be background, it's CG, like it's
what
not,
is the world that
I don't know,
other than Russia, other like than, what is the like, world
it doesn't look
play?
real, but it also doesn't look like a fairy tale storybook. Like it looks like this in between weirdness. But anyways, I do want to give a shout out to, if we can jump to the costumes.
Absolutely.
I do think
costumes were great.
Costumes were great, and it's hard because I do think, now that I'm realizing it, the Broadway version I think put all their budget in those costumes.
And that's why they had a video
Linda
backdrop.
Cho did the costume. Yeah, Linda Cho did the costumes in the original, and I think she won the Tony for this. I think that was the only Tony it won, or it was nominated for sure. Incredible on Broadway, but here it was actually really, I could tell that they did, I'm assuming they had a less budget than Broadway, but I think they did a very well, like, quality job, because they still look like they fit in this world, and they all look of the same world.
And did not just pull directly from the movie designs. I think that's where you can give costume design Ricky Laurie some credit for, like, coming up with gorgeous designs, especially at the end of the show. Like Anastasia comes out in this dress that I've actually never seen before. This beautiful gown. You said it was very nouveau.
It kind of had like little traces of new. Like it felt like it was like nature oozing like gold, and I thought it was beautiful. I kind of like low key liked it more. That I love the big red one that she used in the Broadway show, but I love this version, the pink with gold. It was like really pretty. And it looked a little bit more like the one in the movie that she uses, which is historically also what she wore like in the royal court. Yeah, so one cool thing, because I think I've seen this show 5 times, but the cool thing is seeing when there's differences in the cast or there's a new cast. And I really overall loved this cast. I thought it was really great. We got Lina Ceja as Anya. We got Dylan Klena, Derek Klena's brother, who did it on Broadway, as Dimitri.
Stunt cast.
Peyton Krim as Vlad. Richard Bermudez as Gleb. Susana Guzman as the Dowager Empress. And Sarah Walter as Countess Lily.
Lina Ceja is so perfectly cast in this role because I think she can play both princess and street urchin character. I do think that there's a tendency when you're casting these parts that it would be easy to cast an Anastasia who is like so beautiful and so sweeping and such an ingenue that you cannot believe that she is also, this child who was also raised on the streets and doesn't know who she is. One of the things I appreciate about the musical is that it's not as clear in the text of the show if Anya is actually Anastasia or not. I think the movie is pretty like blunt about like, no, this is Anastasia and she's lost her memory. The musical is a little more subdued about it, and I think that Lena perfectly plays that element of not knowing, you the audience not knowing if she really is Anastasia, because she herself doesn't know that she's Anastasia. She has this beautiful ability to take us on a journey through song. In her first number, In My Dreams, she starts off in this very soft place of unknowing and then ends in this big bombastic like vocal finish, and her ability to like start to give you an I Want song that starts meek and ends big. That's really impressive. I think there's a tendency for princess parts especially to like want to start big and stay big the whole time.
I loved her. I mean, I've had the fortune of seeing this, like a lot of people play her now. And I thought she honored that, like you said, the spunkiness of the character that's supposed to be because also it's supposed to be like that Anastasia herself was very strong-willed, like when she was a young girl. And so I think that comes across in a way that feels natural, where she's like, you could believe that she was also raised on the streets because of what happened to her, but like this could be the princess because she has this like ownership of herself that she carries on, and it feels like she had as a child. And so I liked that of her. Her voice was beautiful, and also we'll talk more about that with her scenes, especially with her grandmama, were wonderful.
And then you have Dylan Klenna as Dimitri. You said it earlier, Gerry, but one of the notable things about this is that Dylan Klenna is the younger brother of Derek Klenna, who originated the Broadway version of this role. He was probably the weakest of the principal members for me. Something in his performance felt very presentational. I wasn't necessarily getting a lot of directness in the way that he spoke to Anya and the other characters in the show. I also don't really think that as like a romantic couple that I really believed Lena and Dylan as Anya and Dimitri as like a romantic couple. I feel like a lot of their more romantic moments felt very forced to me. I do think that in these fairy tale stories, like there's a lot of like people falling in love immediately without an exchange of words. And I do think that that is kind of one of the things that the book doesn't do a very good job at in this show, is giving Anya and Dimitri like enough time together to like establish what their romance is. And so their romance has to exist in the subtext and the unspoken words. And I don't feel like there was enough work done, whether that's something happened in the direction or just in their chemistry as people. I do feel like that they lacked a little chemistry.
No, I will say to Dylan's credit, I always thought Derek Klenna was too perfectly prim and princely to play Dimitri on Broadway. He's wonderful. I've met it. Like, he's a wonderful guy, beautiful voice, excellent actor. But I always felt he was like a little too princely and perfect to be Dimitri. And I think Dylan has a little bit more rough around the edges, that I believe that he was a street urchin a little bit more.
I see it I agree with you in just his physicality and his like looks as an actor. I think it's just in terms of his performance, I was wanting a little more versatility and a little more range in what he brought to Dimitri. And then you have Peyton Krim as Vlad, who is sort of the third wheel to Anya and Dimitri. And for me, he was the highlight of the show. He brought such like a lightness and such a good humor to the show, but not in a way that ever took you out of the world of the show. Gerry, you've said before that you've seen Vlads that have been more a little too silly or a little
it's a hard character to get, because it's like it's in between the clown, but also like there is a gravity to him, because he's kind of like also,
he used to be a count, so he needs to have an air
sort of. In this one he didn't, he was making it, but there's a grandness, and there's also like a fatherly sense to him, like at least in the movie, you know, there is that. So it's a hard little balance to pull off, and I do think that Peyton Krim did a great job. Like probably my favorite that I've seen.
He has such a beautiful, like detailed singing voice where you understand every word that he's singing. Every single like line and phrase had a different emotion attached to it, and the way that everything every emotional beat that he gave led perfectly into the next one. I think that's especially true in the second act of the show, when we meet his romantic counterpart Lily, played by Sarah Walter, who oh god, the two of them together. There's like the 10 minutes in the middle of Act 2 that is just the two of them, I think was my favorite part of the whole show. Sarah Walter as Countess Lily is sort of like the female counterpart to Vlad, where she was a countess in the Russian royal court, but now lives in France. She's very, she has this like elegant surliness that's a very, very camp. Like her comedy bits with Vlad, especially the number that they sing, the Countess and the Common Man in Act 2, is like such beautiful, perfect, like a musical theater comedy, like acting through song. Loved them together. And then you have Richard Bermudez as Gleb, who I earlier said I don't love this character in the show just the way that he's written, but I do think that Richard is so perfectly cast in this part as this sort of like skinny, wiry, almost incel-y like man.
I thought he did wonderful. I've gotten to see him before in a few things in San Diego. And he's so talented. He's so talented. And he's so beautiful, too. And it's funny because I've seen him only as leading men before. And this was my first time seeing him as, like, the villain-ish. And he looks so different. He looks kind of creepy. But, like, you know, but it's because he was doing good work. So, kudos to him. Oh, yes. And finally, Susana Guzman as the Dowager Empress was wonderful. I thought she did a great job. Possibly her scenes with Anya were my favorite in the whole musical because they were really I wish they had more scenes together because they really acted the heck out of that.
It is because I've been saying this whole show, like the spectacle is the point of the show. Like you're going to get big Broadway style spectacle because the book itself is not weak, but the book is very strong, I think, in the reunion scene between Nana and Anastasia, and I think that's because of the chemistry that Susanna and Lena have together as these like two people in this family who have been pulled apart for over a decade now. And they really play the duality of like wanting to believe that this person really is their family and like trying to also accept that even if not, there is some healing that can be had if there is like still a lie that we tell ourselves just to believe this thing that can help us heal our grief. It's a very like tricky thing to play. I think that they played it perfectly together, and I think that just comes from the talent and skill that the two of these women have together. So as we're wrapping this up, if it sounds like you've been heavily critiquing this show, I want to make it clear that like I do not think that this is an unsuccessful production of Anastasia at La Mirada Theatre. I think that there's a difference between feeling like the material itself does not live up to what it could live up to, and that the production that we're seeing is still achieving what it's trying to achieve, which is being this big, huge, mega musical, which you don't see a lot of in LA, at least in non-touring versions of this show.
I do think that, like, if you've never seen the show, you should, if you're a fan of the movie and the material and the songs, you're definitely going to enjoy it. Like, you can see, and that's why people are going out like happy seeing this show, because it's a beautifully realized production of the show that was on Broadway. Now, what would I do? Like, what would I change? I really hope, I think part of our expectations too was because we saw Sweeney Todd earlier this year, and it was such a cool, that was still very faithful to the story and the original production.
But that was like such a unique vision, such a unique take on the show that I'd never seen before. I think I was hoping that maybe there would be more of a unique or original take on this material, but that's just us being like picky Broadway queens who like want to see something new all the time.
I hope that Anastasia gets that. I hope that we were joking, like, I hope it gets a West End revival. That
the really, Jamie Lloyd's Anastasia?
Maybe not Jamie Lloyd, but maybe like what they did to Amelie, which if you're not familiar, look that up. Amelie
was a musical.
A musical with Pippa Sue, and we love Pippa Sue, but like that musical was not great. And then they completely revamped it for the West End, changed the orchestrations, changed the book, and that's the actually licensed one that you get now. But that one's wonderful. Like the second production was wonderful, and I hope that somebody does that with Anastasia someday, because I think there's so much in there that we talked about too that could be brought out. I think the show tries to do too many things and tries to talk, but at the end of the day, like, we're comparing it to like shows of that time, like Frozen and Aladdin and Little Mermaid. Compared to those shows, I do think I love even Prince of Egypt, which I would argue that Anastasia is a better show than Prince of Egypt. And it's also, adapted animated shows into Broadway shows. I think there's so much more juiced to be brought out of Anastasia because it's the real history of it is so fascinating, like the Anna Anderson thing and also the Romanovs. If you look at the actual history and what happened in the fall of the monarchy and the rise of communism, it is fascinating. Even Rasputin, who doesn't show up in this, it's like that history of it is fascinating. And I think there's some very interesting themes in this show about that they're there, but it's really hard to bring him out. I think the scenes and the parts that bring him out are the best scenes in the show, even in this production too. Which is like, I think it's amusing about like how when there's a drastic change, what do you bring from that past, and how do you heal the person that you are now, and what do you bring from the past, but how do you walk into the future? And I think that's a beautiful theme to have. I think that's a beautiful story. That's what probably resonates with everybody that loves this show. But I think the book is still so tame about the material and so not wanting to delve deep. So it's really hard to make a production that really goes at those themes. And I think it's not impossible. I think one day I would love to direct the show someday.
I would love for there to be like what they did for Brigadoon at Pasadena Playhouse. In 75 years, let a new book writer take on the material, keep the songs, but throw out the book and completely write it. I think that that the music of Anastasia is so strong. I just think that the book material needs some work still, and I think that could happen someday.
Yeah, I agree. I hope it does.
But I still say, if you want to see Anastasia at La Mirada Theatre, you will have a good time. If you just want a big, awesome musical, operatic dance spectacle, it plays now through June 28th at La Mirada Theatre. You can get tickets online. You can also use Today Tix. Mm-hmm. And if you have seen Anastasia at La Mirada, let us know in the comments what you thought. If you're a huge fan of the movie, or if you've seen any other production of the show, let us know. And if you are the lost Dowager and Princess Anastasia, please come forward. We would love to talk to you for this channel. If you are out there still, Anastasia, come talk to us. We'll keep your secrets. And until the next video, we will see you later. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye. On a journey up my ass.